The front shows a dramatic picture of the tank in action. This kit is from 2013 and I haven't found another kit review on YouTube. So this isn't only the first review, it's also my first Trumpeter kit. Next to the dimensions of the build model we see the amount of parts. A good part of them are the tracks, but we'll see that during the slideshow. On one side we see one of the color callouts and markings plot the two small PE frets that come with the kit. The two narrow sides show the front picture. Then there's the second color callout, which is actually the same in the optional markings. As it's typical for Russian tanks, there aren't too many markings. Here you can see the original price of the kit at this online shop. It was on sale for €19.95. I saved €11.55 and I call that a bargain. A quick look inside the box and some pics of the sprues while they're still in their bags. Here we have the sprue map, which gives us a nice overview. I find the names for the sprues a little odd, especially the WC, but it doesn't really matter, does it? We'll take a look at the sprues in the order of the sprue map. This sprue comes twice and contains drive sprocket, idle wheel, external fuel tanks and parts for the fenders. What I already can say now is that there's no flash at all and the seam lines appear to be easy to remove with the back of a blade. These tiny parts scare me to death, but I'm sure I'll get along somehow. Here we see the outer side walls of the lower hull. Detail looks crisp and nicely molded. Let's take a look at the lower hull. Even the underside shows nice detail, but it also shows residues of some kind, and that makes it clear that all sprues need to be washed. Usually I don't wash the sprues, and it's unnecessary work even for older Revell, Italeri or Tamiya kits. Well, a new experience, but hey, why not? The next sprue contains mainly parts for the upper hull. The first impression is very good and I want to show you some parts in detail. These mesh parts are covers for the cooling flaps and the detail looks nice enough to give it a wash and call it done. The parts are rather thick and I don't know if I can sand them from the inside and replace the molded mesh with real copper wire mesh. Question: is it necessary to do that? I'll be able to give it the answer in a couple of seconds. Here we have the slide molded exhaust pipes. This is really nice and it's hard to understand why there are still companies that don't do that. The MG barrels aren't slide molded, which is a pity because they're too thin to even think of trying to drill out the muzzles. Then there are some delicate parts like these hooks that may be difficult to cut off the sprue without damaging them. Sprue WK contains parts for the turret assembly, like the turret bottom, vision ports, the gun mount and a hatch lid. We also find stowage bins that are to be placed on the fenders. The cast texture on the gun mount looks very good and it'll be fun to bring out the detail with a wash. The inside of the head lid shows a nice rendition of the opening mechanism as well as two nasty ejector pin marks that won't be easy to fill. Since there's no turret interior, I'll build it closed and it doesn't matter to me, but if anyone wants to upgrade the turret, the marks will have to be filled. Here's the turret. No seam lines, no flash, but realistic looking weld seams and a detailed ventilation cover. This will look nice after a wash and some dry brushing. Parts for the hull, the gun mantlet and the slide molded gun barrel. The rectangular slot next to the hole for the barrel is the flamethrower. There's no rifling in the barrel, but keep in mind that this is only a 45mm gun. Except for these large sprue gates, it shouldn't be difficult to clean up the barrel. The turret MG with most parts for the mounting and the drum magazines. Again, the MG isn't slide molded and due to the small diameter of the muzzle it'll be almost impossible to drill it out. The shoulder rest looks okay from this perspective but seems to be a little too wide. Parts for the upper hull. We can see the turret ring, the engine cover, the rear hatch lids and the fenders. A closer look at the engine cover shows the cooling flaps and takes me back to the question if I should try to replace the molded mesh with real mesh. The rear hatch lids also have ejector pin marks on the inside, but again, there is no interior and this will only be a problem if you want to super detail this area. The handrails look very nice and I'd be happy if I could cut them off the sprue without damaging them. Building them from scratch is nothing I really need to do. The underside of the fenders have loads of ejector pin marks, but they'll be hardly visible. The road wheels come on 3 sprues and I really like the detail. And now for the track links. There are 2 types of links, one with guide horns and a plain one, and 88 links are needed per side. The way they'll have to be built comes close to magic tracks. No pins that will snap off, no alleged workability, just single track links. Excellent. The clear sprue contains the lenses for head and taillight and the parts look good. The larger PE fret contains parts for the rear deflector. The smaller fret has a couple of parts for the turret MG on it, for example the anti-aircraft sight. My camera didn't want to focus properly, so you'll have to believe me that all parts look very nice. Last but not least, the tow cable. You'll have to make 2, which means this cable needs to be cut to length. Here's the decal sheet. Very sparse but very Russian. The decals are thin, but there are some indentations. The way they were stowed in the box doesn't give an explanation for this. The instructions come as a booklet, which is very nice. Languages are English and Chinese. One thing I don't like is that there is no information on the tank, not the tiniest bit of history. Again the sprue map. The steps are clear and easy to follow. At first I was amazed that there are only 10 steps in these instructions, but most steps were 1 page. Other companies would have given more numbers for the steps. Here we see how the tracks should be assembled. I will bend them around the running gear like I did with Dragon Magic tracks. One step is different, and that's number 8. It looks more like a page of some Dragon instruction. Busy and something you want to read several times to make sure of what has to be done.
Захочет написать, значит, позабыла, значит, надо понимать, вовсе не любила.
The painting and marking guide shows only one option for an unknown unit and time. I was mistaken by the 2 picks on the box. What I really love are the many paints you need and the many paint companies that are mentioned here.
Прижимай плечо в плечо, дружба остается, если сердце горячо, девушка найдется, нынче больно не тужи.